Hey there, baseball fans. Welcome back to another edition of the Prep Baseball North Carolina podcast. I'm Brandon Hall, joined as always by our two scouts that are helping us cover the state. We got Zach Broski in the East, Patrick Johnson in the West. Zach's on spring break. Patrick's not quite there. So we're scrambling. We're trying to see as many games as we can. We're trying to get out and see as many players as we can. We're trying to get as much information published, but it's been a busy couple weeks, guys. How are we doing?
Spring break's good. Needed a reset, got the golf game starting to go again. So it's kind of excited, a couple days off, get the handicap down a little bit, go get some baseball and find some snacks. It's kind of my kind of life.
You're gonna need more than a couple days to get your handicap down.
It's getting better.
We've had a busy couple weeks here of just coverage. We've had guys out. We've seen a bunch of games. Scout blogs will be continue to be posted as part of game coverage, and then also what we're doing. But we're going to jump in today and talk a little bit about some of the teams we've seen, some of the things that are happening across the state. And let's start by, obviously we've released the Power 25. We updated it 2 weeks ago. And then on Monday of this week, we released, hey, here's how the top 25 did. That Power 25 did last week. As we get to next Monday, we're going to revamp the Power 25. Zach, let's start with you. Who are some of the teams on the East? Let's start with just teams that are kind of primed to make a run, whether they're into Power 25 or not. Obviously, if they're into Power 25, we think fairly highly of them, but there's some teams lurking.
Yeah, we're going to keep on the Ashley train. They seem to keep playing good, and they haven't fallen. They got a lot of depth on the mound, so even in 3-game weeks, their offense is kind of kicking. And, I still think they're going to be the team to beat in the East. And then the other one we got is Old Bun. Got to beat a couple of them through some of our showcases. They're 12-0, and they're playing really well. Got a couple good arms on the mound and some guys in the lineup that are able to score some runs. So we're gonna have to get out to Bun pretty quickly with the way they're playing. Yeah,
it's an interesting club because I think, and when we look at this stuff, and when we're evaluating the Power 25, a couple of things we look at. We're going to reward teams at times that play 3 and 4 games a week. We get questions a lot, man, they dropped a game last week. How'd you leave them where they're at? Well, they beat 2 teams that were in the Power 25. They lost a 4th game of the week. You start really depleting some pitching. Bun's done a good job with their schedule where they've got enough pitching depth. They've kind of been able to allow those guys to roll back through, and those guys have produced. And I think they've scored some runs too, giving them a chance to kind of build depth. And I think that's important. You've been through the tournament at the end of the year. Talk a little bit about, building that depth, because it is a 1-game scenario. You are going to be scheduled to play 2 games a week, but there's always that case of there's going to be rain. We're going to move a game, and all of a sudden you play 3 games in 5 days, even if it's spread across 2 weeks. And now we're testing that pitching depth.
Yeah, I was kind of blessed to have a surplus arms at Fuquay. So that kind of helped us out. And even on games where we were playing 2-game weeks, we had a scrimmage the Friday or Saturday to play 3 games in a week just in case to make arms ready. When you're playing 3 games a week, it's hard. It's really easy to get up for conference games. Say we were playing Holly Springs or Middle Creek, and then we had some really bad non-conference losses just because it's hard. Like there's times where you're seeing their ace and you're seeing our number 7. And, it's hard to explain that to people. How'd you lose? Well, their number 1 can beat anybody, and we were having a rough time with 7, 8, 9, 10 just because we were saving 4 arms for Holly Springs on Friday. And so, you got to reward teams that kind of play those schedules, and, it's kind of the reason you have strong non-conference schedules is to be able to see people sometimes when you're not at your best and they're at their best.
Yeah, we're looking through Bun's schedule, and you talk what their conference does, and I love this. They're playing conference weeks. So they swept Rocky Mount this week, didn't give up a run. They swept Roanoke Rapids last week, didn't give up a run in the Friday game. They've swept Northern Nash. They've swept Southern Nash. Biggest win to date, South Central, who at the time I think we had in our top 10. So they've played out of conference and played up. They're going to be interesting to follow. You mentioned Ashley as well. And they have really challenged themselves outside looking at them. Not gotten a chance to see them live yet, but at 13-0, they have a win over Cleveland. They have a win over Corinth Holders. They beat Topsail. They beat Laney. They beat New Hanover. They beat Broughton. And so, their league's going to challenge them a little bit as well. But they've gone outside and really taken this group and said, hey, we're going to put you guys in some situations to see if we can't continue to develop who we are. Because, ultimately what we're looking for is how are they going to play as we get into May. And this is a team that got hot. They were a good team last year. They got hot too. So, Patrick, let's look at the West. Who are some of those teams that are playing well right now that we kind of look at and go, okay, these are teams that we really need to keep an eye on as we kind of get into those Western regional situations?
Well, I mean, you got your teams that have been at the top all year. I mean, TC Roberson, always they're good. They dropped 2 games last week, get some tough competition. Look for them to rebound this week. And Metro Atlanta Christian, they were 4-0 last week. They had a big week coming up. 2 matchups against 2 other Power 25 teams. So to see how they play out with that, playing some really good competition this week. I like Charlotte Catholic though. I mean, they have arms, bats. They were 4-0 last week. I think they have a chance to make a push later in the year and to make a run in the playoffs. And then a team in my area around here, they're not in the Power 25. They're undefeated on the year, South Caldwell. I mean, they've played well all year. They have some arms, but they haven't played the level of competition as some of these other teams yet this year. So, I mean, that's a team to keep an eye on as their season goes along. And when they match up against those tougher teams to see, how they play out and see if they can keep the hot streak going.
Yeah, let's start with TC Roberson. A lot to unpack, and I think you're head on the nail with a lot of those clubs right there. Roberson's sitting 11-3, but they lost to Parkview in Georgia, who year in and year out, I don't know how they're playing this year. I'm assuming they're pretty good. One, because they played against Roberson, and Roberson had them in the 7th, had them beat. I think it was one of those days they had played their 4th game in 3 days and just kind of, arms were depleted a little bit. Then they did drop 2 this week. They dropped 1 to Doral Academy in Florida, who's number 11 in the Prep Baseball Florida poll, our Power 25. And then they dropped 1 to St. John's College High School in Maryland. Really good program. Coach Gibbs up there. We recruited a lot out of his program, player development and population based, and they do a great job getting good players there and making them better. But we have St. John's in our overall rankings 3 or 4 spots ahead of TC Roberson. So in the national rankings, that one played out kind of what our poll said it would do, with St. John's winning 2-0. Metro Atlanta Christian Academy took a trip this past week as well. I think they were in Myrtle Beach. Don't hold me to that. I do not think their competition was nearly as good. They won, 1 game in a 4-inning run rule, 1 in a 5-inning run rule. And in their first game, they won 8-1. So, good week for those guys. But, teams like South Caldwell, what did we say? They were 10-0, 11-0, something like that?
12-0.
12-0, played really well. You look at their box scores, you look at the scores, the way that the team has played. They're doing all the components of making good teams be good. They're catching the ball, they're throwing the ball, they're throwing strikes. It looks like timely hitting. Looks like they have a couple guys that gotten hot. Really for us, what we're looking for is either a continued run and continue to pile these wins up, or is there 1 or 2 kind of statement wins? They have a win over Lake Norman. It's probably their best win to date. Lake Norman, we've seen, and they're a solid club. And so that puts South Caldwell. They were in that others getting mentioned or others being thought about for the Power 25 this past week. But that's kind of where they sit right now. Any other teams out there that you guys have kind of from afar or have seen in person go, man, that's one of those clubs?
Yeah, I think Wakefield recently had a big week, took 2 from Wake Forest, kind of starting to trend in the right direction. I think they're kind of one of those scrappy, they don't have the elite guy, but they have a lot of guys that know how to play and know how to win. Got a Division II commit for their Kiko and the Limestone, starts once a week, so they're always going to be competitive. And then Laney's starting to figure it out a little bit at the beach. They got Jason Sproul going to ECU, and it looks like Mr. TJ Zimmerman's putting himself on the map recently.
Zimmerman.
Big body, uncommitted guy.
Zimmerman.
Yeah. So got a big body guy, big strong kids in the low 90s. So I mean, that gives you 2 power arms immediately, so they can compete with anybody if those guys are on.
Let's kind of take the focus now to teams that could make a run. Maybe teams that we haven't thought a ton about with Power 25, or teams that we had in the Power 25 that have fallen off. So Elaney, One that came to mind for me was Cardinal Gibbons. Cardinal Gibbons is a team that really struggled out of the gate. Now they played decent competition, but I think they lost 1, 2, 3, 4 of their first 6 and weren't scoring runs. And now all of a sudden you look up and they've won 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of their last 9, and still playing a solid schedule. They've beaten Wakefield. They beat Leesville Road. They beat Fuquay.
Easy. Knew that was coming.
One of the things that we can kind of look at is some of these teams are just now getting their guys going because of basketball. Basketball finished a couple weeks ago, and now we have a Luke Hemrick. We have who's our pitcher at Hickory that's going to NC State. McCrae. Yeah. So and just even if it's not a spotlight guy, a Friday guy, it's going to be all eyes on him. The ability to add depth to the infield, add depth to the lineup, getting these guys going. And it's not just that they came out of basketball and now they're in the lineup. Now they've had a couple weeks and they're kind of getting it going. And who are some of those clubs for you guys that you feel like could make those runs as they start kind of getting into the year?
I mean, as of late on this side, Providence is playing well. I know we don't have them in the Power 25.
Yeah, I think they're at 17 or 19 this week, but we added them last week, and because of.
But no, they're playing great. They play a tough schedule down there in that area, and they're competing with all these teams, and just see them week in, week out. I think that if they can keep it together, they have a chance to make a run when the playoffs come around.
Yeah, I'm going to say Conley. I think Conley's starting to put the offensive side together a little bit better. They've had arms. Mills has had arms for the last 100 years that Mills has been there. Maybe not 100, but give or take 30. But, they have arms. They're always going to have arms. And I think as long as they can swing it, they got the catcher and Riker Butcher that should pretty much eliminate all run games. So, they're going to win a lot of close games, and I think that's the team, that can kind of put it all together. Arms win late, and they're going to have plenty of them.
Yeah, you look back the last couple of years, those clubs that have made runs, and have been kind of middle seeds, and then all of a sudden they've gotten hot. Part of it, it's the tournament setup, which is awful. Hopefully, I'm hearing there's rumors we may get away from it. We may get into a pod system. We may get into a deal where it's best of 3 or it's a 4-team tournament. It's going to be double elimination. But some of those teams that have gotten hot, you start looking, it's been a late developing arm. Maybe it's a guy that had stuff and now all of a sudden second half of the year he's throwing more strikes. Or it's been younger players that have kind of adjusted to the speed of the game, adjusted to the competition level they're seeing. And so, trying to look through and see, who those clubs will be here in the next couple of weeks will be kind of interesting from our end. We know about the Ashleys, we know about the Providences. The TC Robersons. When they're bringing back that many guys from teams that made runs last year, it's easy to kind of say, okay, let's look at them. We did it with South Central. We really did it with Cardinal Gibbons, D.H. Conley. But it's some of those clubs that may have some younger guys that are in a little bit more of a leadership role that could be those teams that make runs. So that'll be a fun watch here the next couple of weeks as we get out for spring break a bunch. So let's, spring break wise, always a great time within North Carolina, all the tournaments happening across the state. Did you guys play in any really good spring break tournaments when you were coming through?
I played in the Bobby Murray every year. We won it against your dad in 2006, if I remember correctly.
Okay.
We might have won it in 2008. We do have something cool, though. We turned 2 triple plays in one game in 2008 at Millbrook. We turned 2 triple plays to a guy at home and only won by 1. That tells you how the game was going for us. But I think that's our call to fame is we did turn 2 – it might have been in the first and second or the first and third. It was kind of an insane little run of triple plays.
No, we play in the same one every year around here. They have the one at the fairgrounds right here where we live. And it's a great spring break tournament. The best one I got, I played against my business partner, Dustin Harrington, back in high school. We went to Alexander, and he ended up beating me that game. And so the first day that I got into business with him, I walk into the office and I see the newspaper clipping and it says Harrington outduels Johnson, and he's got it standing right there, and it's been there ever since. So he doesn't let me forget that. But that was probably our best matchup in that tournament.
So for me, the spring break deal, and again, I was a Raleigh guy, so the Bobby Murray, but I can go back to the Bobby Murray all the way back to when I was in middle school, and the Bobby Murray used to be, 4 or 5 or 6 Raleigh teams, and they would bring teams from out of state. So it'd be Ohio, Pennsylvania, New York. It'd be North Carolina versus, and they would have those games going on. And, I'm not real sure how we were involved. If it was the league I played in or North Wake or whatever, but we kind of helped run the tournament. When I say that, we worked the field, we did concessions, I chased foul balls. And so I can remember freezing my tail off the night Duke, Kentucky played in the Leitner last second shot of a full-length pass from Grant Hill. And there's a game going on at Millbrook, and everybody's huddled around like a little kickstand heater, trying to get those old-fashioned TVs that had the flip antenna on it, because we didn't have the cell phones getting all the TV stuff in. And everybody trying to watch that game. And in the middle of the game, with nothing really happening in the game, the entire stands just went nuts. And then, fast forward that, and you think about some of these towns we go to, these kids chase foul balls, they help with concessions, and they help in between games. And then all of a sudden, 3, 4, 5 years later, they're playing on that field in front of those kids that are going to be that next wave going through. And so it's nostalgic for me. And it's a week where those guys get to just dive into baseball. There's nothing else going on. There's 2 things that happen, though. Really good teams that are going to make a run dive into baseball and take care of their business everywhere else. Then you have the flip side of that, and a lot of times it happens to senior-laden teams. When you hit spring break, I know where I'm going to school next year. I know if I'm playing baseball next year, and they flip the switch, and now they want to just enjoy that senior year and play the string out, and they lose that edge, and it's hard to get that edge back. Have you guys seen that happen with teams you're on or teams you coached or kids you've been around kind of watching, just kind of something to kind of be on the lookout for as we get through spring break?
Yeah, we kind of flipped our spring break and started playing when we got back. Kind of gave them the first end off and then flipped it so they'd come back early. So that way we were having games or practices before we went back into conference play, because, if you don't do it, we were playing on Mondays, so you'd have a conference game the day you came back from spring break. So we try to do it Saturday through Tuesday or Wednesday. Y'all could go. We'd come back, play a game or something of that nature. We lost the most kids to sunburns. I'm just going to let you know, we were notorious for one kid having really bad blisters of I'm not going to get burned. It was cloudy. And then, it happens every year. Guys, I'm going to let you know it's going to burn. You can't pitch. You can't throw. Just put on sunscreen. I know it doesn't look cool, but, don't hurt your team by not having on sunscreen.
Oh, man.
It happens every year.
Yeah, it does. I mean, we never – I don't know if y'all's baseball was different over there or compared to ours. I mean, we had our tournament here, and, we never got to travel anywhere for tournaments like that or anything. And then, we had the tournament. I don't remember really when I was playing getting much of a spring break. We would go back to practice and then games the next week. But I wish I'd have had a chance to go get a little sunburnt with a spring break or something,
We played Bobby Murray when I was playing was on the front end. So we would play the Friday as our last day of school. You play Friday, Saturday,
championship
Monday, and then Monday, boom, we would hit so my senior year we lost on Friday, which meant we were going to play early on Monday. And so we won on Saturday. I think we got the second game on Monday, and my buddy's Jeep was packed. We left from the game. So
100%.
And then you come back and deal with the ramifications of spring break on Saturday. And then, we played on Tuesday. And I can remember having a good year, but I came back on Tuesday, and I think I had a run of 14 straight complete games or whatever it was.
Jesus.
And I got I threw a ton of strikes. I didn't beat any bats. There was a lot of contact. If we caught the ball behind me, it was a lot of quick innings.
You didn't have no pitch counts either. Strike thrower that doesn't miss bats. You can roll through some high school lineups. But we got back in that Tuesday, and I remember cramping in the 6th and 7th inning, and the dugout scrambling to get the next guy going and figuring out if we're gonna have to go to the bullpen. I think
I had a freaking line drive missile hit our shortstop who couldn't get out of the way of it. It landed in his glove, and he touched second for a double play, and that's how he got out of it. But just word of warning to all the players out there. There are big goals ahead of you. Yes, have fun. Yes, be a high school senior, but understand that there are things that you want to accomplish, and so let's put as best you can put those things in perspective too as you're enjoying yourselves. And then please be safe and don't do anything that's going to have long-term ramifications. Just take a minute to think. So every year we hear about something that happened. A team lost a player, some because of this. Just make good decisions as best you can. Make good decisions and put good people around you. So get off my high horse here and let's kind of move. We got the summer schedule coming up. One of the things that we're excited about as we kind of get through the spring and kind of get through those tournaments is that we get to go back out and see players in terms of what we do and evaluating them and then running our events and kind of building to some events. So, everything ultimately for us is building towards future games, super sophomore games, and top prospect games. And that process of finding those players that are going to represent Team North Carolina started with our winter events, the preseason IDs, the preseason All-States. We're double backing and checking on players now. And then we're going to start opening up events this week. You'll start seeing advertising and links for our Team North Carolina trials, our IDs, the North Carolina-South Carolina border battle, and also Scout Days. So your thoughts on what's going to be a great summer as we're going to be out and about, covering the state all the way from Wilmington to Asheville.
Yeah, I mean, it's, you're already starting to get the college coaches pinging in on which events that we need to put on our schedule, all the kids starting to call in, which events are the best. I mean, it's a good time for you. I know you guys getting ready for summer ball. It's a good time to get some numbers and videos to post with your summer schedules. Like, it is a great event for a lot of us to be able to get you seen and be able for you guys to put yourself in a better situation to get recruited. The recruiting process is changing. And so this is kind of one of the ways that can kind of help you, even just piggybacking ideas off of us, be able to help you guys kind of relax a little bit in a hard situation.
Yeah,
Patrick, you got a chance to go to the future games last year. So kind of ultimate goal for these guys.
It's got to be your ultimate goal. I mean, that was my first time experiencing it last year. I mean, it was long days, but we enjoyed it. Huh?
For us, we had three teams down there, so
it was. Yeah, they were long, but I enjoyed it. Getting to kind of hang out with all the guys, meet their parents, do all that. But then, I mean, it's like everywhere you look, there's scouts everywhere, every game. I mean, it was one of the coolest experiences I've had for high school baseball like that, and put yourself in a situation to where you can be recruited. In anything you do. I mean, everywhere you turn, there's a scout. So, I mean, that was really cool. And, I mean, all of our other events, too. I mean, the border battle was awesome last year. Looking forward to all of those. And but the future games, that's the one I'm looking forward to again this year.
Yeah, obviously that event, we've got what we consider to be the best uncommitted players in our state. We put together a team, take them to Atlanta. They play against other teams from other areas that are in the same boat. And then, day one, there were 426 college coaches and pro scouts there, and they're basically huddled on two fields, watching those two fields go through a workout. As we got to day two, there's two fields with games going on at the time, two fields kind of getting ready for their next game. So there's a little bit of overlay on the games, but not a ton. But one of the things we did last year is we started the senior games, the senior future games. So those rising seniors that were still uncommitted. And I was really a little bit shocked, and trying to understand where the recruiting calendar is and how this is moving. The number of coaches that were dialed in on those rising seniors. And so every senior we took from North Carolina has now committed, I think, to a school that was at the future games last year. And then, obviously with those juniors, we've had a bunch go off the board. We've got more that are going to go off the board this summer. We've got several college coaches and pro scouts that I've already seen kind of doubling back and asking about guys that were at future games just because their process is moving a little slower. The first big one for us is the North Carolina-South Carolina border battle. It's going to come up right as school's ending in most of the state. I think it's the second week in June. It will be at UNC Charlotte again. Workout day on Tuesday, gameplay day on Wednesday. Our best in North Carolina that we've seen up to this point. I've gotten invites, and we're going to try and have those guys face South Carolina. Always a great event for us because we get to hang out with those guys from South Carolina too. So, as we get ready for that event, what do we remember that event from last year and kind of kicking off the summer?
Yeah, no, it was a fun time. Heck, even the scramble to find the last minute hotel for me and Patrick was a blast between us. But no, it's fun. You get to see different guys. It's easier to when you have different states because you have a better idea of where your guys are.
Right.
Seeing South Carolina, North Carolina, you're not seeing the same guys. You're getting to see a different level of guy, a different tier of guy, and South Carolina's best, your best, somewhere, see where they stand. And it kind of gives you a better broad picture of where everybody is. Sometimes we can get pigeon-eyed, just like, hey, like, oh, we're the best. And now a chance you get to branch it out, see a whole different group of the top 50 players from a different area. And you're like, oh, this guy needs to be moved up or this guy needs to be moved down a little bit. Kind of gives you that idea with it.
Yeah, I mean, it's not only – I don't think it's just good for us, but, I mean, I think it's great for the kids to see where they stand as well. I mean, because – everyone, in high school, you go to these colleges, you're the best player. Then you get there, everyone's good. I mean, so it's good for them to see the other competition and see where they stack up with guys, from other states, and then to future games, guys around the country, so they can really, kind of put everything into perspective and, kind of set their goals and where they want to be.
The last 2 years at UNC Charlotte with that event, we've averaged right around 30 schools being in attendance each year. So, it's one of those things one of the questions we always get asked is, are there going to be college coaches there? Are there going to be college coaches there? It's a good thing and it's a bad thing in terms of who we are and what we do. But a lot of times, and I know you guys hear it as much as I do, we'll call schools, say, hey, here's what we've got coming up. Are you going to be there? Is there anything we can do for you? Do you need rosters? And, I get the question, are you going to be there? Yeah, well, yeah, I'm running it. I'm going to be there. And they go, well, then no, I don't need to be there. We trust what you're doing. We trust the numbers you guys are putting out. I've known you for 20 years. I'm going to call you after the event. I'm going to find out. And you're going to give me the list, and I'm going to go back in and see him play in live game action. So it's almost like having another guy on the road when you guys run those types of events. Now, the difference to the North Carolina-South Carolina border battle is the number of high-level players that are in attendance, and then it's also a kickoff event for a lot of coaches where they've already got their list based on some of the things that happened this winter. Maybe a lot of these guys are guys they weren't able to kind of ping during the spring season. A lot of better arms sometimes will throw on Fridays. Well, colleges are playing on Fridays. It just doesn't work out. So we're excited to see those guys there. If you've not received an invitation to the North Carolina-South Carolina border battle, you can request one on the showcase tab at prepbaseball.com/North-Carolina, or just on the top of the page, use the drop-down box and go to North Carolina. You'll see the showcase tab there. And then always you can feel free to ping us, and we'll kind of keep you updated on what's going on between scout days, our open IDs, and then the border battle. Those will be the guys, along with the guys we saw this winter, that we'll have kind of on our list to start sifting through as we start building Team North Carolina for the future games, the super sophomore games, and then also our top prospect games. So, staying on prospects and staying on player evaluation, let's turn our eyes a little bit now to the uncommitted seniors. And this year's been a little bit different than a lot of years in the past, just because of the new college baseball rules. We thought COVID was really screwing over those guys that were coming out during the COVID year. And then 2 years later, there was some, the transfer rules that happened, and these guys are getting extra years. And are we hurting that high school group? This high school group, this 2025 class, in the middle of their senior year, NCAA comes in and says, hey, roster limits are going to be restricted. There's not going to be as many roster spots. Oh, yeah, by the way, the transfer portal's wide open. And, oh, yeah, by the way, junior college years may not count. So we got all sorts of talent flooding the pool that college coaches are trying to draw from. There are really, really, really good players still left on the 2025 class board. And, there are some guys coming off here and there. There's coaches still working at it. I don't think coaches really have an idea what their roster is going to be next year until they kind of get a feel for where the portal is going to be. And that's going to have another explosion in terms of them trying to figure out where these guys are. What are your thoughts on some of what we've seen with the 2025 class? And then are there some players that kind of pop up? Patrick, let's start with you in terms of, just overall thought, kind of outside looking in at what's happening, and then some 2025s that come to mind in your area.
Well, I mean, I think some of it's all going to have to be figured out. Like you said, with the JUCO years maybe not counting and everything and all that. I mean, I think it's kind of thrown a wrench in everyone, and it's made the recruiting process even tougher. I mean, there's a guy from my area, Grayson Anderson, was committed to Campbell, decommitted. Now, I talk to him pretty often, and, trying to talk through about, what's the best plan, JUCO, try to go D1, back to, and just trying to figure it out. And, it's still it's tough, for these guys, and just, having to wait around. And I think that's why it's great that we added the uncommitted seniors to the future games at the end of the summer. I mean, like you said, it helped everything with the process, but you still have a lot of guys in this area. They're still uncommitted. Like I said, Grayson, just looking at the list here, but you have, hang on, I lost it. You have Nico Soul still committed. If I'm wrong on that.
Right now he still is. Yeah.
Right. I mean, so, you still have big time players all over the state, like you said, that are high level talent that haven't found their spot yet. And I think you're going to see that continue until they kind of iron out all the rules and how things are going to play out and stuff like that. It's way different than when I was being recruited. I can tell you that. And I don't know how I would handle it this day and age, but these guys, I think they do a great job with it.
Zach, on the eastern side of the state?
Yeah, I mean, it's a weird, I've been in the recruiting world for a long time with it, and it's hard. Like, you used to be able to make phone calls and make things happen a whole lot easier than now. It's roster numbers and some levels it's NIL money, and it's just a different world and different atmosphere. And people panic because they see things, and not everybody quite understands what they see. Like, hey, this guy committed here, and like, yeah, but like, if you look at our top 100, we got some guys for the first time committed to Division III that are in the top 100, 90, 93 guys. Like, it is a different animal, and now it's all about production and going to play. Like, there's not so much developing as they're taking producers. For me, I got two. I got the Simmons brothers out of Jay's Rose, two of my favorites. Owen's up to probably 90, 91 on a really good day. His brother's a great defender, starting to hit some homers. I think he's got 3. Like, great pair. I don't know if they want to go to school together. I don't know how much they like each other. I don't know how the brotherly love is for them, but like, man, those are 2 really good players, and I don't know what they're going to do, but like, those guys need a home. Like, they deserve a home. They're good enough to have a home, and you start looking now, there's a lot more out-of-state places coming into North Carolina and taking some guys. They're starting to get some steals out of North Carolina that they never used to have. And I get it. Everybody's waiting to see what happens in this almighty portal. And, some people are going to look out, and, I hope they find a home. There's a lot more on this list, for the first, we got a lot of guys in our top 100 still not committed. Our top 150, there's going to be a senior blow up. It could be TJ Zimmerman. It could be a guy that just puts his name right on the map, and all of a sudden everybody's jumping in, and well, that takes a spot from somebody. And so, it's just a matter of time before everybody finds a home. Legion ball or whatever you guys do in the summer, it's starting to get way more recruited than it used to be. And so, once the draft happens, once the portal opens and closes, people are going to have a better idea of where they're going to end up and what they need.
One of the things I'm going to show here and try to present my screen as we're going, share screen, is one of the things that we do weekly that I'm a fan of, and it's getting a ton of likes and shares and views and eyes on it like that. It's just our scout blog. So, one of the things that we're out, we've got guys out all over the state. The 3 of us are out trying to watch as many games as we can. And some of our guys don't write up everything that they see. Sometimes they call it in. So we're getting news and notes on guys. But if it's written up, we're able to put it in these scout blogs. So, we look at last week's scout blog, and at the very top, we've got some major league drafts and some guys, and we're trying to track those guys. And we see Nico in there as a potential follow for the draft, and we'll kind of see what happens with that. But as we kind of continue committed prospects, but the area we're seeing a ton of guys kind of reading is this area right here with the uncommitted prospects, and so you're getting some 2025s that are getting some love, and if we've got you in our system and we've got video or we take video, we can post it. And this is getting action. Guys are watching this stuff. If we don't have you, we can't post video. And so you see, we don't have the names highlighted. We don't have them in the system, in our database. Some of what Zach saw with the 2026 is here as well. These are getting some love because what's happening now is, you do have coaches that are trying to finish and finalize, exactly what they're doing with their 25 prospect class and what their 26 team is going to look like. But they're also starting to kind of build that list of the 26 prospects and what their 27 roster is going to be. And again, it's not going to move real fast because they've got to get through the portal. They've got to get through some other things. So even as you get into the summer, that 26 class is okay. We're in the summer, full go. Let's see who wants me, who who wants to call me, who wants to be on and bring me on invites. They're going to be spending a ton of time on the portal early. I think it's a really good thing for the prospects because if you understand the timeline, hey, there's going to be less guys committing really, really early. I have a chance to develop. I have a chance to get better. I can take some time, and I'm not having to go out and put myself in positions when I'm not ready. Let's take some time. Let's get better. Let's develop. Let's get stronger. And then let's post. Let's go play games. Let's be in front of people. Events like ours, and our coverage – our numbers have gone through the roof in terms of college coaches kind of watching what's happening just from the standpoint of they're not spending as much time on this. So when we post things like that, they can go and knock out 30 players, bang, bang, bang. And then when they hear that name later on, they go, oh, remember, Prep Baseball had him. Now I can go back and watch that video. Now they're starting to build history on that player too. So it's an interesting time for these guys. And I would say to the senior class, and if I'm wrong, guys, correct me, I would say that we're not near done with where the 2025 class is going to be. I think there's going to be kind of a rush as we get towards the end of the year and even the beginning of the summer of guys landing and finding places to play.
Yeah, I think so. And I think, like, for kids, you guys got to kind of be observant. Like, there's going to be some schools that take more high school kids. And those are kind of the place you need to kind of start working to yourself, whether it's a Division I, Division II, a high-end JUCO, or just a regular school. Like, you got to kind of be aware of what you're doing. Like, we all want to go, we all want to be Patrick. We all want to go to Carolina. Like, it didn't work for all of us. I transferred 5 times. I'm probably the outlier of everything. Like, you got to find where you want it, and you got to be smart and look and be observant. Like, if they're taking a bunch of high school kids, that's the place you need to put yourself. If they're only taking junior college and transfer portal guys, then if that's the guy you want to be, you got to put yourself in a junior college to be able to put yourself in their eyes in a different way later. And that's just kind of what the way it's working. And if you're stubborn, you're probably going to get left behind. Like, and that's just being as honest as I can with it. You can't be stubborn at this because it's always changing, and you're going to have to change too.
Yeah. I mean, and don't get caught up with what other people are doing. Like, your number one goal should be to find the best fit for you that's going to give you the best opportunity to grow as a player and develop. I mean, just because someone else commits early or they commit somewhere, that it doesn't matter. That's their spot. Focus on where you're going to end up that's going to fit you the best to grow as a player and put yourself in a situation to get to the ultimate goal that you want, even if it's not right away. Keep your eyes on what you're trying to do and don't worry about, the other guys that may commit early or have already committed or anything like that.
Yeah, games I was at last week, I saw, I want to say 11 college coaches. I saw junior college programs at several different games I was at. So, they're still in it. They're still ramping this thing up. We're going to have our scout blog from last week popping up later on Tuesday. So it'll be out when this podcast posts. And you can kind of go back and through. There are some really good high school senior arms that we saw last week, still looking for a place to play. And, talking to the JC guys, talking to the pro scouts who are out there, talking to high school coaches, they're still baiting the water. There's still college programs that are still trying to fill out rosters and trying to figure out how these roster numbers are going to land. And then, kind of watching what's going to happen with the portal. So I think, as much as we players kind of look at it and go, oh my gosh, I want to sign early. I know that's not a thing anymore. And guys can kind of, go at their own pace. As we kind of get the spring break, guys want to know what's happening. I promise you, if you're still looking, continue to work at it, continue to contact schools, continue to understand what schools are looking for. But there are schools out there still looking for good players and looking to kind of build their 2026 roster. So we wish everybody the best. We'll continue to be out there looking. If you're a senior and you've been to some of our events and you have some information on the site, throw that stuff out there. Let people know where you're going to be. Ping us if you got big games coming up because we're looking for big games. The spring break tournaments, ping us. If you don't see your spring break on our schedule that's posted to the website, let us know. Send us a schedule. We'll get it on there because, again, college coaches, pro scouts, high school fans, a lot of people are getting to the website trying to figure out where you guys are going to be, and we will let them know as best we can when we have the information. So for Zach Borowski, Patrick Johnson, I'm Brandon Hall. This has been the Prep Baseball North Carolina podcast. We'll see you guys at the field. Oh, now I'm going to try again.